Planning, Environment, and Development Committee meeting of April 1st to order. To roll call. Looks like everyone is here in person except Mr. Kearns, who is going to join us remotely.
Make a motion to approve Jim Kearns.
We have a motion and second by Carl to approve Mr. Kearns attending remotely. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Welcome, Jim. Mr. Kearns, can you hear me? Guess so. Okay. We'll move to public comment. Is there any public comment? Anyone from the public? Mike, please come up and introduce yourself. State your reason for being.
I'm Mike Von Bergen. I am one of the commissioners for Hebron Drainage District number 1, and you've appointed me in the past for that. And I just want to reach out to you again. I know we tried to work with Mr. Kransky last year and had some leg issues, but I think each one of you need to come out and get with me or Chris or my dad, and we go over the district and explain that to you all. So you got a good idea of what it is and what you're doing and what you're voting when you vote these people in for these positions or appoint them. Just get out and see what we're actually doing and what we're trying to accomplish, because we're doing a big project up in our area this year. It's not happening until fall. We'll be cleaning out some ditches, and redoing some tile that's been in there for 120 years. So we're just trying to do some upgrading. We went through a tax process last fall where we raised our assessment and put on a new special assessment for cleaning this ditch out. So it'll get us some money to do that, because it's a substantial amount of money now to do a lot of this work. So I'd just like to say, reach out to me. So I've got some cards and stuff later I could give to you, and or some of you already have my number. So
I think we could probably find you through somebody else that's
probably yes. So that's all I got to say.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions on Drainage District while we're standing here?
I don't right now, but if you think it'd be worthwhile, you're certainly welcome to come to this committee and give a presentation.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be good to go over. Right now we're working on updating our map. I hired a guy with a drone to do some of our ditch identification, and it's pretty neat with some of the aerial stuff that he's able to do, and we can identify those areas that need to be addressed and not doing the whole thing. So spending our money wisely that we have very little of. So.
Do you have a set meeting time that you meet, or just kind of?
No, we have an annual meeting once a year, and that's the second week of November, and otherwise we meet as we need to, and usually that's in the field with the shovel or flags and spotting problems out there. So next week is going out and fixing holes with our contractor. So you're welcome to tag along with. So just.
Well, if you have cards, if you want to leave them there.
Okay,
Great.
all right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be there.
Excuse me. Go ahead, Carolyn.
We need to do minutes.
Oh, let's start. Yep. Need a motion by Carolyn to approve the minutes for
I'll
the
second.
March 4th, seconded by Joe. And comments?
Yeah, I do. Shoot, I went off this page. Just on a couple things. I thought there was some information may not have been picked up right, but I didn't have time to correct it. But on page 4, last paragraph, first paragraph, the AI isn't picking up the words. So it's the Kishwaukee Mitigation Bank, McHenry, not Montgomery, and it's Friends of Hackmatack. I don't know what else they got in there. They got something like Habitat. So I think there's just some things it's not picking up on, but otherwise.
Okay. You can take care of that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes. Oh, made a motion. Go to vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Minutes are approved. Hey, Jim, how you doing?
Good morning. I didn't know if you could hear me.
I can hear you now. So if you want to jump in, just holler in case I forget about you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, is there any members' comments? Obviously, you can tell by my voice I'm not 100% this morning, but I'm going to try to get through this. If I start having a coughing fit or something, then I will leave and Carolyn can take charge. But I don't think it's anything serious, so I'm not saying I'm going to be terribly contagious or anything like that. I think it's more of
We're all moving down.
Yeah. I never had a job where I could just like call in and be sick, you know, so I just like, here I am. Okay, we'll move on to new business. Interviewing the applicants for the Greenwood Drainage District. Is David Brzica here?
Yeah, I'm present.
David, you want to step up front, please, and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit why you'd want to be on the commission?
You want this right here?
Yeah, let's grab this chair.
Thanks. Good morning. My name is Dave Brzica. I'm a landowner up here in McHenry County for many years with my family. We have about 12 farms in the local area. Actually, the closest one is right next door here, right up on 47 before you get to Charles Road. The reason I want to get more involved with the drainage, the district, is ever since they built these homes up here just to the north of us, there's been just inundation of flood water going on to my farm. I've been to many meetings. I've made a lot of requests. A lot of the same feedback was, well, there's no money in the budget right now, and right now I've probably lost about 12 acres of cropland here. So I'm directly involved with the drainage issues that are going out here. Also, I got a farm up in Richmond that also has drainage issues off of 173. Pretty much my background has been with my family, taking care of the farms that are here. I did most of the physical work around here, cutting grass, everything else, and I deal with the farmers. I've got the Hogans that work my land, and of course I got Mike Von Bergen too, who's one of my other farmers up in Hebron. I simply figured that I think I could get more done if I get more involved with the community. And maybe this is a good opening for me to go into work with the county. And this is, to me, it's a good first step in order to maybe do something else. So I'm retired from American Airlines after 27 years. And like I said, my job now is basically take care of the farms that we have around here. And I'd like to be considered for possibly a drainage commissioner position.
Okay, well, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Carolyn? Go ahead.
When you say you went to meetings, which meetings did you go to where you were trying to get the issue?
Oh, well, a lot of it when initially happened, when they built those houses, I believe they started breaking ground around 2006. So if you see the aerial map, you'll see the progression of flood water going into the farmland. And we met up, first time we met up was with the county. Army Corps of Engineers came out to look at it, and they have decided that it was because of the new housing development that the flood water seemed to wanted to come and backwash into it. Also, there was a berm that was built after the fact to keep the water inside my property too. So this is something like Mike says, if you come out and see it, you will really see the difference over me showing pictures. Meetings we had was with the county. This was around 2012-ish, where we went to the county to see if they can do something about maybe putting in a larger drainage tile that's in there. I believe there's one that's in there that's 24 or 30 inch in there, and then there's a few feed ups to that. But it doesn't seem to hold the water, especially when we get bigger storms. It's actually got progressively worse over time. So a lot of the times it was like we would try to talk to somebody from the county. At that point, my parents were involved as well. So they would be making a lot of calls through people they knew. They would actually reference some of the farmers who Harry Hogan was pretty much involved with it at that time while he was with us. And I was more or less just kind of in the back seat, just kind of seeing what's going to happen, and nothing seemed to ever progress. So, and that's why this is, to me, an opportunity for me to get a little bit more involved. Not solely for me, because I'm sure there's other drainage issues out there as well, but I can relate. that makes a big difference to me.
Okay. Anyone else? Have you ever been on any type of commission or?
No.
Thing then? Okay. Okay, anyone else have anything? Well, thank you for applying for the position and coming in this morning.
Thank you.
We have a second applicant, Christopher Leone. Morning.
Morning.
You can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit why you'd be interested in this position.
My name is Chris Leone. I'm a resident of Woodstock here in McHenry County, and really looking at this position because I want to get involved in the community on a local and county level as well. Put my time in. My family and I committed to living here long term and want to get involved in the town and the city and the county and make it a better place for our kids to live and really be a committed resident and put time in towards that. I want to apply my construction experience from an infrastructure standpoint towards this position, which is what led me to applying for this role in the Greenwood Drainage District. Looking to apply that experience and time I've had in the construction industry towards it and really kind of address the issues like they were being discussed earlier and make sure our tax dollars are efficiently used as well.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Have you ever been on a commission like this before? Or?
I have not. This would be my first opportunity.
And you live in the city of Woodstock? Is it?
I live in the Apple Creek Estates neighborhood off of
Okay.
Dean Street.
Okay. And your work experience with the infrastructure, what kind of, can you be more specific about that?
I'm currently working for Peter Baker Asphalt, and I'm working on their manufacturing side currently right now as a heavy equipment operator. And I've been trained and schooled in multiple infrastructure training and aspects of that as well through my union and everything. So that's been my first call out, and I've been kind of going through that ever since. So also trained in the sewer water aspect as well.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
What township, are you in this district, do you know?
I currently live in Door 9 in Door Township. During my research, I was looking for opportunities within the area.
My concern is you may not physically be in this, we have two people applying for this job. So only one of you can make it, but one of the concerns I have right now is where you described you live, I don't think is part of this drainage district. So I don't think you're eligible for that. That's what I'm worried about. I'm glad you want to get involved, but I don't want to appoint somebody that's not eligible because you don't live in the drainage district.
Understood.
You know, so is there a way we can check that relatively quickly to find out if his address is in the district?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until he just said that. I know where Applewood is. It's like, I don't think that's the same side of town.
Yeah, Greenwood's north.
Door's not Greenwood, so.
I understand.
The drainage district is different than the township.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
but
Check your GIS maps.
that's why I'm asking. I'm not trying to.
Right.
It's a valid point.
You asked me.
Can I offer some clarification?
Yeah. No, sure.
So the requirement, you have to be a resident of the state of Illinois.
Okay.
So then the next step is then, if you live in the district like I do and own land, that's the next bump up. And then in David's case, he owns multiple properties within that district, or the Greenwood district here. You know, that would be his vested interest in it. So he's a resident of the state of Illinois, lives in Crystal Lake, but they own
Okay, so
property.
he's got the same property. He owns property in the district.
Owns property in the
You own any
district.
property in the district?
I do not.
If his house address is not in the district, he doesn't own property in the district.
Correct.
So,
Right.
His last points. that is based on
It's
the
a
point, it's like,
tiered system.
But
Well,
that's how I would view it.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure, like, if you own property in there, you got a real good interest in
the best.
the vested interest in that, and maintaining that property.
Yeah, we're just looking for the legal aspect of it right now.
Right.
The legal aspect would be state
They don't know.
resident.
You got 3
well,
turns.
Let's hope.
Okay.
Can you ask AI?
Huh?
Let's see how this.
There's too many hallucinations there. Anyway, I am glad that you want to be involved, and I'm sorry to create this wrench, but.
I think it was a valid point.
Yeah.
Doing your job.
Do we have any decision on that? Whether,
Norm's begging out in the back. It's his last week and he can't even take a risk. Come on.
And I've never looked at this issue, so I don't know whether you have
Okay.
to be a
All
resident
right.
of that district.
All right.
we went through this with Coon Creek one time, and not a resident of the district, but owned property or new property in that district is the way it worked that time. That was just a couple years ago.
Okay.
The question is his house in that district?
Or does he own it?
It is not. It's a Door Township, Door 9.
Okay. That's probably gonna eliminate you from the discussion then.
Well,
Well, we can talk about it, but that's my only concern.
Scott?
Understood.
I say, how about we, if I take his address, I can go to GIS, we can confirm whether or not it's within that district.
Okay. We can put this, and we can do that this morning and put this deliberation off?
I think Pete has the answer.
The district is right here.
Yeah, what's his address?
It was applicant Estates.
If you just give me a few minutes.
Sure.
Okay, well, we'll come back.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We'll figure this out and let you know.
This says door.
Okay, we're gonna go past 5.3 for now and move on to presentations. So Alex, our county administration intern, is gonna give us a presentation on film permit framework. So everybody should have got a copy this morning.
Well, good morning. My name is Alex Walk, administrative intern with county admin. Well, the purpose of this permit is to provide structure for film productions within the county based on the vision of the committee today, but also keeping in mind incentivizing film productions moving forward too. This draft of the film ordinance and permit application, it was based on Woodstock's film permitting process. And we also utilize the best practices of filming production policies in Illinois checklists from the film office, as well as analyze various other cities and counties' film permit structure throughout this process. Film, video, and photo production falls under the county's goal of promoting economic development. Therefore, we took a 3-tiered approach for film permitting to promote filming moving forward. So next I'll go into the film structure. As you can see on the screen too, each level will be determined by the county administrator in order to provide flexibility based on film production. Level 1 filming activities would not require, or typically would not require county property, typically occurring on private property, and should cause no disruptions to surrounding people. No fees would be required, but there still is a permit for documentation. Level 2 filming activities require the use of county property and would impact surrounding as well. It would typically cause some disruption to traffic patterns, and a location fee of $300 per day per location would be required. Level 3 filming activities include the same elements as I just listed off, but this would be increased, caused by major disruptions to the surrounding area. A location fee of $500 per day per location would be required at this level. and the county board approval. I decided to include this just for sign off, given that it would cause major disruptions to traffic based on light, sound, or access. But I'll actually open that up right now if that's something that the committee would be open to, having county board approval for a level 3 film permit. Either right now or at the end too, so.
If I could just add a little
Yeah,
bit
go
more
ahead.
more to that. So what we found in the past, if they had to go through the UDO, then you have the public hearing process for any variance, and you had a really prolonged time period to get that film permit approved. The changes to the UDO will take this out, but what this provides at level 3, understanding it's going to be a kind of a major impact, it still gives the county board the ability to review it, to assess it, to sign off on it. But theoretically, that could happen within a meeting cycle. So you have a much shorter time period as opposed to public hearing requirement and everything else that goes with the UDO variances.
Okay, thank you. Where did you get the fee structure from? Is it?
That was based off of Woodstock's fee structure, but I decided to lower the fee. They use $500 per day for level 3, but I decided to lower that for level 2 just to have that incremental approach to the fee structure. So.
Okay.
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
It's the next paragraph. It's been a long time since we filmed anything major in this area, but it filmed all night when it filmed.
Right.
And a lot of filming in the industry used to be, they wanted to control like lights in the windows. And so if you were even filming inside a building, they preferred filming at night because they could control what light was coming in by what they placed in the windows. You've got this closing at 10 p.m. That's gonna hurt the industry.
Right. Well, that can be extended from a majority of residents within the surrounding area, but that would also, I believe, be discussed prior with the county administrator as well.
I can tell you, I wouldn't want to see, I just know that's, unless there's been a dramatic change in the industry, they film at night because that's when they can control the light standards. So if you close it at 10 o'clock, they're not coming.
Understandable.
This is, I think, this is what we want, this kind of feedback. The thought here was if it was filming outside, say doing a night scene, they would have obviously a lot of.
Ask San Francisco about Die Hard. They hated it.
Okay.
But they filmed that in the middle of, those explosions were in the middle of the night.
I think, yeah, the point, we're really gonna be dealing with unincorporated areas, so it's less impactful probably on nearby residents, and this is maybe from a more municipal setting, so your points are valid.
That's the only thing that I saw that, because I do think it's worthwhile having here, and, you go back, yes, to the 80s, but, we had a lot of movies filmed here, and they, turned out to be a benefit for the community for long term.
Larry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just question, because I do have a question about the level 1, but is it better to allow them to go through the whole thing and then go back and ask questions, or do you want me to ask my question now?
It's up to Alex.
Yeah, that should be working.
So for level 1, it talks about, this one would be on private property only, wouldn't include any, problems with noise and that sort of thing. But when we get to level 2, what I'm thinking is when we had that thing about the survival, it was all on private property, but the issue was the noise. And so I'm thinking, does that need to, private property, all within private property need to be in level 2 then, that has a potential for substantial noise, because otherwise we don't address that issue.
Like having that private property language incorporated within
Level 2, that's going to be what we were experiencing with that particular property. Because I don't feel like it's a company.
They had, an hour worth of helicopters sitting over your house would tend to just be disruptive.
But I'm just saying that situation isn't accounted for in here, just per the language.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Well, it does say no noise.
No, it says if it doesn't have any noise. So if it's something that you're just filming on your property, there's no noise, there's nothing, they can just do that, right? But we don't talk about getting approval if it's going to be wholly on private property, but would have impact with noise and everything else to the neighbors. So anyway, you got what I said, right?
Go ahead,
We're on the
Paul.
line.
With that Survivor Series or whatever, it was also, you could only do 2 or 3 consecutive days. I don't see anything in here. Now is it open book that it can go as long as it wants?
I believe that would be discussed with the county administrator beforehand as well, and with other departments as well, I believe, so.
Well, that is the issue when we do this, right, make it easier. But part of that other process was the disruption to the neighbors. And then we had it going through the different permitting process to allow them to do that. So we had a little more control.
This is a license process rather than going through a zoning hearing and everything else.
So is this gonna open us up to some problems with that stuff?
I don't know.
Hey, Scott?
Yeah, the way we wanted to approach this was, we can't contemplate every filming scenario that would happen. But what we want to do is have a structure that would ensure that we can encourage this activity, but put some guardrails around, you know, the impact it would have on adjacent properties and public services. What this does is just give you the 3 levels. Really, a lot of that determination as to whether or not it's a level 1, level 2, level 3, really falls into the review of the county administrator to take a look at it once we have a meeting, once they submit their permit application, we have a chance to vet it. Then there's that flexibility to determine what impact it's going to have. So the intent is just to really put that structure in place, give that ability for the county administrator then to determine truly what will that impact be, and then how it should be assessed within the various frameworks. So we can't cover every scenario. I mean, obviously that'd be impossible, but this is just to really give us, like, some guidance on how we should approach the filming while still being encouraging to the film industry.
Okay, so if there was something that was gonna cause the issue, it'd be county administrator could move it to a level 3, and then it has to come to the county board for complete review. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
The general restrictions primarily focus on, when film, video, photo productions can occur, do not disturb people in the surrounding area. For example, film production activities will be permitted between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, as discussed and brought up. Film production activities would be permitted between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Sundays. As I mentioned before, film activities could be extended with prior approval. Insurance requirements are also included in order to receive a permit. Permit process itself, the permit application and special requirements checklists are further included to make sure that the applicant has gone through all of the required steps. Special requirements checklist of each department and agency is also important for the applicant to meet with, as again discussed before, to review that production and determine costs. That's where the level of permit is worked out. The applicant will then provide proof of insurance and the required agreements and any copies of release forms. All required location fees and costs are due on or before the day of issuance of the permit. And lastly, this permit strives to, as discussed as well, to achieve a user-friendly interaction with film production agencies and to provide an effective and efficient process for future filming. So next steps would be to collaborate with the state's attorney's office, and the chairman also actually recommended meeting with the most recent film production company to determine the effectiveness and efficiency of this film permit. But with that, open it up to any questions besides what was just talked about.
Anyone have any more questions?
Mine's just the time. That's the only issue.
So on the time, it's prior approval received by a majority of affected business owners or residents. And then the next sentence says approval for extended hours may be granted by the county administrator in advance. So that sounds like the administrator can extend that without all the neighbors agreeing to it. Is that how I'm reading? That's how I'm reading it, that he would have the authority to do it without the neighbors. Or are you reading it that the neighbors would have to all agree and the administrator still approve it?
think that would be the logical process for it, just to have residents buy into that, and then have the county administrator basically sign off on that. But
Will you read it here?
That's how I would want to operate.
Yeah.
And I'm not always going to be the county administrator, but that's how I would want to operate. You know, our most recent experience down in Franklinville, that production company spent a lot more time early and often with the neighbors, almost to a fault, before they came to the county. And that's how we got in the pickle that we did. They ran out of time in our process because they hadn't come to the county early, but they were spending all their time getting the neighbors buy-in. And so that's kind of what's prompting this. You know, we want a leaner, more, a real process in place. We kind of did it on the fly. Adam will test, last time, but I think the desire is to make this a place where people want to do film work, but have it, as Scott said, a little structure around it.
Okay. Anyone else? Carolyn?
I would just add that level 1 possibility to level 2. That's all.
of course.
Thank you.
Time? Mr. Guttermauer? Any recommendations or?
My recommendations would be, I would remove when you issue a permit, you may want to talk about the time. But like I said, I just watched them do it years ago. And they filmed, it was a night job. It was not a daytime job, because at nighttime they can control the lighting. So you're inside a house or you're in a yard and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but they control the lights every time. And that was necessary for their film crews. So I mean, that's, the technology certainly could have changed that they don't need that anymore, but I'd be surprised to find that they don't want to make certain they have control over all the light that's around them. And
Well, I agree that they would want to do that, but this sort of gives us an opportunity to, that at least we would have to know about it.
I don't mind knowing about it, but I just think if you're filming a full-length movie at some point in time out here again, you're filming at night. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
And so I would,
Whether it's night scenes or not.
Yeah, it's not the night scenes, it's that they control the light that's being cast by filming at night so that they have complete control of what's in their camera on their film.
So how would you address,
I
no, I'm just saying, just real quickly, how could you address that in here? Like, can you, if the production company has to come in and say generally what kind of hours they need to get this done, and then there's some kind of approval process with that in mind?
I'm okay with that, but I wouldn't start by saying.
No, I understand that, but
the cutoff. I'd say, tell us when you're filming. That's okay.
So a review of production schedule requirements
Agreed upon hours or something.
need to be agreed upon through the county administrator prior to approval.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
Okay,
Something that, depends what they need.
but at least you take the hours out, but
Previously-
it's clear that they have to
Previously
approve it.
agreed upon hours of operation.
Perfect. I think that's fine.
Is that clear enough, Alex?
Larry,
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
I agree with Joe and Carolyn on that's how we should handle that with the hours. Instead of chasing them away, if we say 10 p.m. as is the ending on the application, they're just might not come.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I could see where if a production crew picked this up and read it, that they could feel like it is negative to what they wanted to do without, before they even got started, they'd just say, hey, we'll go somewhere else that wants to work with us. Go ahead, Scott.
Mr. Chairman, that's a fantastic point. So Alex, why don't you talk about what our next steps are in this process?
So the next steps would be meeting again with the state's attorney's office and with the film production company that was recently just in the county here, just to meet with them and to make sure that the process kind of aligns with your goals today as well. So.
We'd like to get their feedback because we're taking a stab at this. We're not film production company. We want their input just to make sure it is workable and is user-friendly for them. And there are many things like Member Godmauer points out that we don't know about. So this is their opportunity to give some input on how we can make this something that's going to be really workable to and encouraging to the film industry.
Yeah.
And then costs might be too high, maybe too low as well, but we want to make sure that covers our bases here too. So.
Okay. So we can change the language though about that timing. And the rest of it, we're pretty good with. See how it works, because it's all sort of new to us. Is that okay? They good with you, Alex? Is that clear enough?
Yep, that should work with me, so,
Okay.
thank you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Got anything from the GIS or not yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. We're gonna keep moving on then to 6.2. How long do we expect this presentation?
10 minutes, 15
Okay.
tops.
Okay, that would be great. Norm, we want to move to it right now? Is that okay?
I'm helping Norm.
Oh, okay.
I have a whip.
Norm, what are you doing here? I thought you were done.
I'm close, I'm
Close, yeah?
We're gonna get that last penny on you, Norm.
What this handout is, it's a copy of the slides so that you can refer to them later if you'd like to. So there you go. Good morning. So this is just a high-level overview of the zoning process. The first 5 pages of this are really Joe's pages, and they are ones that talk about the different amendments. And the first page, and Joe will talk about this, are what's called the LaSalle factors, which are really important to you when you're voting on whether to approve some zoning or some conditional use permit, things of that nature. So Joe, I don't know if you want to take that or.
Right. So here's the concern. From a county board standpoint, and so you guys understand what we're looking at. I am never going to call you up and tell you how to vote, okay? What I'm trying to give you are the tools necessary so you can come to your own conclusion. And so when I look at this, and staff helps with a lot of these things, the first question I always have is, what are they asking for? You know, who's the petitioner? What are they asking for? All right? And what you've got in front of you on that sheet is what they call map amendments. Those are the LaSalle factors. LaSalle factors was a case in the 1950s. The Illinois Supreme Court said when you're going to change zoning, these are the standards you look at. Now, if you want to stay out of trouble as a board, and we do want to stay out of trouble as a board, you can conclude whether it's compatible with the proposed zoning and the existing uses and the zoning of the nearby property all by yourself, okay? But if you decide you want to make a statement about that, you want to tie it to those standards. You don't have to make a statement, you can just vote, but if you're going to make a statement and you decide that it's not compatible with those standards, that's fine, that's your decision, that's a legislative decision, you can make that. Where you get in trouble, and I know I've told many of you this story before, Mary Luzier was a wonderful gal, and she was on this board when I was doing zoning cases, and she once made a statement that, oh, that farmer's a great guy, I've known him for years, we should let him do whatever he wants. That is not a zoning standard, okay? Please don't say that in the board. I mean, you can think it, and you can say, you know, this is what I like, but when you're coming down to it, you want to look at standards like this. The extent to which the property value is going to change, is diminished. The extent to which the public health, safety, and welfare of the public are promoted by the existing zoning. The gain to the public is compared to the hardship imposed by the applicant if he doesn't get what he wants to do or she wants to do. I mean, those are the factors. It goes on to the next page. But you're looking at, you know, first and foremost, what's the request? Is it a map amendment? Is it a text amendment? Is it conditional use, or is it a subdivision plat, or is it a variation? I mean, there are 5 things that we're asked to vote on regularly, right? We've seen 2 subdivision plats in 12 years, so don't spend a lot of time worrying about that. Map amendments, text amendments, conditional uses, and variations are the 4 things you're going to see often. And the nice part about those standards is that when you get the petition and it comes before you, staff always puts the standards in there. You may not realize you're reading the standards, but they're in there. And the zoning board or the zoning, the variation, the hearing officer also make a finding as to whether or not they think it's been met. Right? So you have those in front of you beforehand. So anyway, Norm, I'll let you take this back.
Okay. Yeah, you'll see like the LaSalle factors, I've heard them discussed quite a bit when group homes, when somebody wants to do a group home in a neighborhood. And those are really very poignant for those sort of situations. So all the standards are there. Joe laid them out very, very well. And actually, I've said this, and every time that Joe and I have done this presentation, there probably is not an attorney in the county, I would say there isn't an attorney in the county that is more knowledgeable on zoning issues than Joe. So you've got a great resource right here on the board with you. So, yeah, so get through these, let's see there. So, and if you have any questions on this stuff at any time, by all means, call the office. Laura Scary is, well, she moved over there. Laura Scary's here. She's gonna be taking the civil chief job. And you know Kyle, but call Laura. She'll get you worked out with whoever should give you the best answer on it. So county zoning. It goes back to 1935, and this slide is a little bit old. I pulled a lot of these slides out of an old presentation that was much, much longer, but basically at the time of this, there were 58 counties that had zoning ordinances on their websites, 102 counties in Illinois. And a lot of the zoning is to protect agricultural land, and that is, you know, pretty appropriate for us because you get west of 47 and it's just a lot of agricultural land out that way. And but for instance, says for parcels less than 5 acres, county zoning cannot be used to impose regulations, eliminate uses, buildings or structures, or require permits with respect to land used for agricultural purposes.
And folks, you don't think much about that, but our zoning ordinance, when we were actually writing the UDO, we knew that we didn't have the authority to define what an agricultural purpose was. We don't generally regulate agricultural uses. There are some exceptions. You've got livestock regulations, but they're not zoning regulations. They're really health department regulations. You can't put 100 horses on 2 acres. It just won't work. But those are the kind of regulations we have. We don't have general zoning regulations about agriculture because the state of Illinois won't let us. It's not, we just don't have the authority to make the decision.
It's interesting, if you've ever flown in a small plane, you get, 15 minutes in that small plane outside of the Chicago area, and it's just farms everywhere. This is a very agricultural state, despite living so close to Chicago. Agricultural purposes, there's a lot there. It used to actually include gravel pits as well, but it does not include gravel pits anymore. But animal and poultry husbandry, dairying, floriculture, horticulture.
The agricultural gravel pit, if you do look at an aerial map, and you look generally between Woodstock and Huntley, there's an area that has about a mile long, it's an irrigation pond, but it's about a mile long and about 100 yards wide, and that's how it was done. The gravel companies actually took the stuff out. In the Farmer's Defense, he irrigates 800 acres from that, but absolutely, the county was having fits at the time because they said, "You're mining." And he's like, "No, I'm not mining. I'm getting this off my property so I have an irrigation pond." But it's a straight, long, narrow pond. You can see it in any aerial shot you see. And right after that happened, about 2 years later, is when that case came down. And so they got back in the regulation business.
Just some exempted activities for ag zones. The county zoning, it's grounded in police powers, health, safety, and welfare, conserve property values. Some of that goes right back to those LaSalle factors. The scope of regulations, the use of buildings and land use, regulate the intensity, establish zoning districts, travel to foreign countries, a lot of times it's right next to a hospital, there's a smelting plant, there's not much difference. Zoning Board of Appeals, I think this is still applicable to us. The number of members on that Zoning Board of Appeals, members shall be residents of separate townships. 2 additional members are allowed for us because we're less than 1 million people in population. And when you get, like when it comes to the board, it's typically gone through that Zoning Board of Appeals. And it's an interesting thing because your vote is, it seems contradictive with the votes. They'll say they vote no. And when you vote yes, you're voting to back up what they voted no. So that's why a lot of times in the zoning or on those votes, you'll hear either Adam or you'll hear somebody say, the chair will say, oh, this is the vote. Yeah. There are the duties of the Board of Appeals. Hearing officer, I don't know who the hearing officer is right now. Who is the
It was
hearing?
McNerney for a long time.
Is it still Mike McNerney?
Yes.
It is? Okay, all right, yeah. Okay. And that's what they can do. They're authorized to conduct these hearings, act on a variance, hear and submit written recommendations to the board.
So we got a hearing officer because it used to be a full board hearing, and most of those variances are simple variations. My deck, in order to work, needs to be a foot closer to the sideline than it is. My garage is in the side yard and it's supposed to be in the front yard or whatever. It was a simple regulation. And by having 1 board member versus 7 make the decision, you saved roughly $500 in cost for the petitioner. And that was the rationale when we did it.
Variances. And this is where Joe was talking about, like where your garage is a foot too close, something like that. You need a variance.
The other thing you should know about, in terms of differences, variances and zoning changes, there's a state statute that can require a supermajority vote. Conditional uses do not have that. So if and again, that gets to what's in front of you. If a variance or a change in zoning is before you, and either 20% of the neighbors of the surrounding property objected, the town within 1.5 miles, or a township with a plan commission objects and does the formal objection process like Crystal Lake did 2 months ago, that can force a supermajority vote. Supermajority vote for us is 14 people, and it doesn't matter if there's only 13 people show up. It's 14 people of the whole board have to vote in favor of it for it to get approved. It does not apply to conditional uses. So when you have, again, why you need to ask what's being requested. If you're asking for a conditional use for a gravel pit, there's no mechanism to force a supermajority vote. It's always going to be just a simple majority of who's present.
And that's always shown on the agenda what the vote needs to be.
But that's why, because it does change from time to time. You won't know unless you read that before.
Text versus map amendments. A text amendment affects the entire county. Every piece of property you're amending.
The film thing we're doing today ends up being a text amendment to our ordinance because it's going to create this new process and it's going to end up being a license, but that would be a text amendment because it's not talking about, you know, so-and-so just has a petition and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's really covering what the whole county can do.
Yeah, and because a map amendment is a specific piece of property. It's just that part of the map. Notice provisions for publication. Adam, do you take care of all of that? Yeah. Where the locations of hearing? Always here in the county building.
When's the last time you had somebody actually asked to move the hearing to the location?
We haven't had one.
I was gonna say, I can't remember a time when it was done. I know it's a way you could do it, but I've never,
Yeah.
I never thought it would be an advantage.
Now we will.
Exactly, Jinx. Yeah, notice provisions. special use, information that's in petitions and the timeframes here. This is any decision by the county board regarding petition or application of a special use variance zoning shall be subject to a de novo judicial review, which means from the start, basically. It's a fresh look. The court won't necessarily take into consideration what the board has done or the hearing officer has done. They'll look at it fresh. But you can see that they do give presumptive validity of the action of the board, and to overturn it, it's got to be clear and convincing evidence that the decision was arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. And there's a statute of limitations of 90 days to file that suit.
And the nuns are the last one that got one over.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in just a second, because we'll get to the religious thing here. But so, where Joe was talking about Crystal Lake, and I'm sure you all remember that, where Crystal Lake came in for the storage facility, and that's where the municipal relationship comes in, that they're entitled to, file objections if they don't want some zoning or some change within a mile and a half of their boundaries. Places of worship. This is, don't mention the nun case. This has been a few years ago, but there's a statute called ARUPA, which, it says protection of religious exercise in land use by institutionalized persons. And I think it started out with prisoners and what they could do as far as their religious exercise, but it's been expanded to if there is a zoning petition for a religious organization, they actually get a lot of leeway. And you as the government have to really be able to show, for instance, I don't know if this has a little pointer on it, but it's furtherance of compelling governmental interest and it is the least restrictive means to further that interest. So if you're turning down some petition from a religious organization, you've got to meet those standards in there. And where that nun case came in, it was called Fraternite Notre Dame. They were out of the city and they wanted to build, they owned property already, but they wanted to build a gift shop. They wanted to build a dormitory for students. They wanted to have a brewery there. I forget what else they wanted.
They also wanted a nursing home.
And they wanted, and a school. They wanted, I think they wanted their own school. And so it was voted down and they sued us in federal court, and it went on for a good couple years, and it was settled with giving them some of what they wanted, but not all of what they wanted. And I don't think they ever broke ground on anything. So it was a big fight for really nothing. Yeah, that's
lost.
Yeah, we did, because we ended up settling and having to give them some of what they wanted to do, but I don't know if they ran out of money or steam, but it never happened, which
I got to go to federal court. That was very interesting.
Yeah, it was a dogfight over there. So that's the slideshow that we have there. And again, you've got some great resources. You got Adam and his team is a great resource. Lauren, the civil division's a great resource. Joe is a great resource. He just really is.
Well, what I would say is when I'm doing the analysis, okay, so I sit down and it's a few days before the meeting and we've got the zoning matters that have come before you. I would say my first question is, what's the request? It's always, because that tells me where I'm going. Am I doing a text amendment? Am I doing a conditional use? Am I doing a zoning variation? Those are the, and then the second thing that I look at is, what did the zoning board recommend? I mean, and understand, for the zoning board to have a positive recommendation, they need 5 votes either way. If it comes 4-3, it comes to as if the zoning board didn't happen. Okay? But if it comes 5-2, either way, in favor of it or opposed to it, that's the recommendation from the board. Or obviously you can go 6-1, whatever, but it has to have 5 votes to get a positive recommendation either way. So it comes before you that way, so that's the second thing. The third thing I would look at, and I do look at, is were there objectors? Is there, you know, what are the neighbors doing? What are the towns doing? What's going on around us? Okay. Now, it's really easy. If you got a 7-0 vote and no objectors, I mean, you're probably getting approved, okay? But we don't, those aren't the ones that tear you up. The ones that tear you up are, you've got objectors, so now what's the basis of their objection? Let's assume they're objectors. The staff report includes the zoning board's voting meeting. And so you can read what our zoning board officers actually base their decision on. And you can read the whole transcript of the whole meeting if you want, but at least that tells you this is what the issues were before you. Now, whether, you know, at that point in time, if you still don't know which way you're gonna go, I call staff and they click. Because staff, in their portion of this, will have a staff recommendation and they will go through the elements that you're stuck, you know, with because of the type of petition is. Those are the elements that you're deciding on, okay? And I'm saying, and if you really get stuck, call staff, call me, call anybody else you want. It is not my job to tell you how to vote, and I don't ever intend to do that, other than an argument from the floor, which I might make, but you know, that's the same thing we'd all do. But I do think it's important that you have the tools to make the decision. And those really are the tools that I would be using regularly. It also means that when you get 75 pages, you can get through it without reading 75 pages and not knowing if page 5 is any better than page 10. You really want to tackle it with a game plan. You know, what's being asked? You know, I mean, where is it? I mean, what's the, you know, what are the neighbors doing? What's the zoning board recommendation? And with that, in most instances, you'll be okay. Will you always agree with the zoning board? Of course not. Are you going to always agree with all the petitioners? I would think that would be really unusual. but it does give you the pieces you have to go after. And,
so the standards are somewhat subjective, and that's why the zoning board doesn't even agree sometimes.
Yes.
So we're not always going to agree on that it meets all the standards.
Right.
But if we're going to approve it, it's supposed to meet every standard.
I mean, on those LaSalle standards?
Yeah.
Not necessarily that it has to meet every standard, but, because some may be, you know, heavier, more heavily weighed than others, but you, in your own mind, for your own vote, you've got to be convinced that, hey, these LaSalle factors don't trump the ability or the desirability to have this approved. So if for instance, if I take a look here, to the extent to which public health, safety, and welfare of the public is promoted by the existing zoning, well, that to me might be a more important factor, public health, safety, and welfare, than the suitability of the property for purposes to which it is presently zoned. It's a house. I have a 5-bedroom house. I want to do a group home. You know, is it designed to be a group home? Is it for that purpose? No. But does that impact the public health, safety, and welfare of the public? Probably not.
There's one other twist that happens with group homes, though. The Federal Fair Housing Act kind of overruled most of that.
Yeah.
So the federal government passed a Fair Housing Act that in essence says group homes are homes. They're residences, whether you like them in your single family neighborhood or not, they're residences. And so it's really difficult to vote no on a group home. And as a guy whose precinct has 2 of them, I can tell you it did bring out all of my neighbors.
Yeah, and let me ask you, Joe, after that, were there problems? I mean, were there complaints?
You know, a long time, well, put it this way. My son is now 38. My wife used to babysit my son and the neighbor to the group home's daughter when they were 2. So we're talking I've known them a very long time. To their credit, once that group moved in, the first thing they did on the first weekend was invite them all over for a cookout so that they met the neighbors and they all kind of developed their boundaries. That was a better solution. It was not one I gave them, but it was a better solution than being mad about your next door neighbor It was really just a group of people who were trying to recover from alcoholism. You know, they did not serve beer at the party.
Yeah, it's funny because we would get calls too, but after a group home was approved and people moved in, we never heard anything. It was
It's
like
always-
it wasn't a big deal at all. Yeah.
And I did one once in the city of Crystal Lake as a zoning request for Home of the Sparrow. And it's over by the lake, it's across the street from the lake on kind of the southwest corner of Crystal Lake. And Jim Bishop was the attorney that decided, he got up and argued there was no need for it in the city. And Aaron Shepley was the mayor at the time. He's like, so you're telling me that there's no homeless women in McHenry County? Or, you know, and in Crystal Lake in particular, and if we disagree with you on that statement, we can approve this. I was like, yeah, it was not a good argument to me. I would not want to stand up there and explain that there's no women in need in McHenry County.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Anybody have more questions, anybody, or?
If you have more, call me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be glad to talk about anything.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Norm. Goodbye, I think.
Good riddance, don't you mean good riddance?
Keeping it stable.
Seriously, I do mean it. We're going to miss you.
Okay. We're going to jump back to 5.3, deliberation and selection for the Greenwood Drainage District. It's been confirmed. Unfortunately, Chris Leone, one of the applicants, is not eligible. He's in the Door Drainage District. If Mr. Leone is still here, he is still here. I'm sorry, Chris, I would encourage you, I'm not sure the Door Drainage District is up and running right now, but maybe that's something you could look forward to and apply there when the time comes.
Sounds good.
And maybe instigate getting the Drainage District up and running. So, but thank you for coming in, we appreciate that you did that. So,
Thank you.
So,
I would also say, keep an eye out. The county has positions open for various things all the time. And I'd love to have you back for them.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity and everything. I'll definitely be a little more strategic with my research and when I'm going about it.
Well, we should probably be a little better about explaining
Yeah, I was
that on
gonna
our
say,
website.
Yeah, we need to do something.
Okay.
okay, so we'll move forward with the deliberation. Our other applicant, David Brzica, is here. Is there?
And he owns land in the district.
He owns land in the district, has a vested interest. Is there a motion to,
I will.
from Mr. Godemuller, a motion to move David Brzica's name forward to the county board chairman, seconded by Carolyn. Any discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote. Carolyn?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Dina?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So David Brzica's name will be moved forward as a recommendation to the county board chairman.
Larry?
Yes?
To follow up on that, is there a way, I mean, I know we have a lot of boards and commissions, but we had something come up before when somebody couldn't do it because they were serving on a different board and there was a conflict, but we didn't really find out about it until we were actually interviewing them. And that's a kind of an awkward position to be in, both for the person who's made the effort to come in and for us. Is there a way to figure, I know there's a lot of applicants.
Yeah, well, and I apologize for not making that more clear. And I scribbled a note on that. It seems like we learn every time we go.
Right, no, it's always, there's different situations that come up, and I know it's a lot of work, but yeah, if there's something that we can kind of focus on.
We had one recently that we did catch, was a residency required for the Lake and the Hills Sanitary
Right.
District. Is that the one?
No, it was something else. It was, I don't remember, it was a couple of years back in 2020.
They were on a township board wanting to do something on the commission and.
It was something, I don't remember, but it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, anything
It
staff,
happens, but,
it happens, and anything
but-
staff could do to help us out with that would be great. So, and it gets cleared up before it gets in front of us. Okay, I think we're moving on to number 7, routine consent agenda. We only have one thing on the routine consent agenda.
Good morning, everyone.
Motion. A motion by Paul, seconded by Carl. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Apologies. So the resolution that we have in front of you today is part of our stormwater ordinance requirements. When someone is proposing a project, we look at the amount of impervious area that is proposed that could trigger a runoff, what we call runoff reduction. So more water tends to leave the site, so we want to slow that down for downstream infrastructure, et cetera. So I think the best way to go through this is I included an aerial for everyone. So just going to go through some of the sequencing here. The main project area, I've highlighted the properties in blue, so this matches the plat that you guys have there from the surveyor. So the original project came in, I've highlighted a couple of elements there. One is a detention basin. That detention basin was proposed as part of the original permit. Just to the west of that were a couple of indoor riding arenas or for horses, ag use that the owner wanted to use. So that was part of the permit process throughout the project. And this is a 2022 aerial, so this has been in place for quite some time. The different family members have finally come together to get us to this point. But they have proposed some outdoor riding areas just to the north that then triggered the need for a revision to their original permit. As part of that process, they sought this exemption to the ordinance. So in essence, what this does normally would someone requesting this exemption would exempt them from the requirements of detention. In this case, it's kind of a hybrid situation where they've built the detention as part of the original improvements. They've looked to add more. So in our view, normally when we look at this request, we would want to consider what the downstream impacts are. So that's why in this area I showed there's an existing culvert there in Paulson Road. There's already an existing stream that goes through there. So in a normal situation, if they didn't have the detention basin, it might warrant a review and analysis by an engineer that maybe something needs to be provided there due to the proximity. They already have that. So going beyond that scope and adding impervious areas on the rest of the properties within that exemption in our eyes would be okay. So we would recommend that moving forward. But that's essentially what you have here. There's already a detention basin supplied. That's going to remain. So it just covers kind of the remaining impervious areas throughout the other properties. And as I mentioned, it was multiple family members, so they just kind of had to come together finally and put it together. But that's what this resolution would be for.
Okay, Carolyn?
So are you saying that part of that is because they want that riding for the horses up north of that?
Yeah, that was not part of the original permit. That was going to be green space.
So would that drainage go how would that drainage go? Because, would that not impact because the conservation easement is north of that? Right there?
Well, technically it would include everything. So
everything. So it goes either there or it goes down to the basin.
Right. So there's a ridge line just to the north of that, kind of where that one kind of skinny driveway runs up, and you can kind of see the creek there. But the majority would still go to the detention basin.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything's still routed through there. The majority of the impervious, and where our concern would be that if we didn't have the detention basin there to capture some of that and slow it down, we could be looking at more flooding in Paulson Road at that existing culvert location. It is a low spot as well.
So you're comfortable with it?
Yes.
The property owners are comfortable with it?
They are, yeah. And I don't think they have, future expansion goals, but if they were to, then again, we would still, like I said, in normal situations, this exemption is to alleviate the need for detention, but in some circumstances where that impervious area is close to infrastructure, close to the right of way, maybe another property, we do take a look at it to see if there would be an impact. If there's a potential impact, then we might request that detention basin and an adequate design to help with that. So it's kind of a combo hybrid component here where they're keeping that detention basin. They're not looking to eliminate it.
Just real quickly, and I won't beat it to death. So the detention basin, does that hold it and then drain it into that culvert, or does it just hold it?
Yeah, it drains it to the right of way, and then it
goes back.
And it goes back to that existing culvert location. Yeah.
Anything else on this? Okay.
Yeah,
Jim, go ahead.
maybe I didn't understand it. They're building an arena, an outdoor arena.
They've actually already constructed that. They had an original permit to do that, and during that window of where their permit was valid, they basically expanded beyond the scope of their original permit, Jim. And that's what prompted us to come back. So they really had an option to either revise their detention basin or kind of come up with this hybrid idea to capture a lot of that impervious area in the easement and still maintain the detention basin, just because of the concern to downstream infrastructure and the potential for increasing flood risk.
So the outdoor, the riding area, you're saying that's all impervious?
Yeah, they have laid down a mixture of gravel and limestone. And typically what they did have as an option potentially to look at the potential for that area to infiltrate. And so our requirement doesn't necessarily stop at the lines. So if they, let's say, I don't know what the exact dimensions are, but let's say they did a foot of a combination of gravel and limestone. So in that foot, the water could potentially infiltrate, but we don't know what the subgrade is. If it's a clay, once that area basically fills up with water, then that storage is used up and it's dead storage at that point. So it's no different than the water just sheet flowing off as a normal impervious surface like asphalt or concrete.
Okay, and how many feet did they go over on their original plan?
I don't have the exact numbers, but that area is probably somewhere around maybe a little bit less than half an acre.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions.
Anyone else? Go to vote. Joe?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Dina?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Business, reports, ZBA, Renee's here.
Hey, I'll be very quick.
Okay.
You've had enough zoning, huh? So you have 4 petitions coming before you in April. 3 of them, pretty standard stuff. There's a solar farm, there's a variation, and there's a renewal for a landscape business with outdoor storage that's had no controversy associated with it. So it should be an easy renewal. The only one that's a little bit different that you're gonna hear this time is Glusman. And that is, it's a single family home in an R1 neighborhood in unincorporated McHenry. It's a waterfront property. This family constructed this house, brand new construction. They do Airbnb. They want to do Airbnb more times than we allow in the ordinance. So in order to do that, they have to get a conditional use. So there were some neighbors that came out in opposition, but it has a 7-0 recommendation to move forward in approval, because partially what a lot of the ZBA members felt was we have these things all over the place. People are not following the rules. These people are trying to do it correctly, so we should work with them, kind of thing. So But you will probably hear some opposition to that one.
It's a conditional use, by the way, folks, which means it's a simple majority vote.
Yes.
So, thank you. So how many more times are they looking to do it beyond, and not that you know offhand, but it's outside of
It's
it?
not limited.
And then if they get this approved, then they'd be able to do it whenever they wanted to.
Whenever they want it, yes. They can do it every night of the year.
Oh, I got you.
If they want to. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
There's one more thing that you want to say.
What? Oh,
There's nothing else you want to say?
no, nothing.
All right, that's because she's quiet about it.
The 2050 comprehensive plan update?
Yeah, so 2050 comprehensive plan. We've got a meeting with House of Levine tomorrow to set up kind of the final schedule. The big thing is that we've got them confirmed for May 15th to come to the county board and do a presentation of the whole shebang. There's some minor edits. And kind of formatting it for the board itself. So what we were looking at was to have that presentation, and at about the same time, probably shortly before, is when that document will be ready in a red line format. That presentation will kick it off, introduce it to the whole county board, what's in it, going through chapter by chapter generally. And then the county board will have it. And then at that following meeting in June, that's when it would come here for the committee. And we would hash it out quickly and no, but there are some issues. There's some things that are going to be revised. We know that, and then we'll try to highlight those other items that are redlined that conceptually have been modified.
To put the whole legal thing in perspective, if you do not have a comprehensive plan, you're not allowed to do zoning as a county. So this is what is your foundational aspect of being able to do a zoning ordinance on top of it. So if you go someplace where it doesn't have a comp plan, they don't have zoning. It is kind of important.
Yeah.
It is. And
it's time to get it wrapped up anyway, right?
It's time to get it wrapped up. Yeah. It's a great document in terms of what it's brought in, what it's achieving, and from everything from the land use, which is really the centerpiece of that document, to green infrastructure and some of the other peripheral elements that tie into land use and smart development. So we're really excited about it. We're really excited to also wrap it up. But when you wrap it up, that means we're going to use it. So that's exactly what gets us excited, is to kind of look at these fresh perspectives. It's a major update from where we were in the current plan, the 2030 plan. So.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. What I was teasing Renee on was that was her last zoning update for you all. She is taking the director's role in the city of Lake Geneva. And so tomorrow is her last day.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, we are excited for her. We will miss her. She was instrumental in keeping everything together during this 2050 project. I will say that. She did an omen's job. But yeah, we'll miss her. And
yeah,
we wish
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, or Geneva, Illinois?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we'll miss you, Renee. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, come back and tell us what we're doing wrong anytime. It's okay.
Yeah. Lake Geneva will be a whole different perspective with the lake properties up there. Okay, and we're not done yet. I think we've been waiting for all morning.
Oh, yes.
Spongy Moth update.
Can't wait.
Hi, Scott. What do you got for us?
Thank you so much for that warm-up, and I know that you worked through all the business this morning waiting for Spongy Moth's update. Spongy Moth season will soon be upon us, and what we're asking everybody, this committee, all our citizen scientists, members of the public, be on the lookout for Spongy Moth egg masses. I did send out some messaging to our citizen scientists. This committee was copied on it. And in today's edition of MC Thrive, we're going to have an article of spongy moth egg masses and how to remove them. Because if you remove the egg masses now, you're going to eliminate hundreds to thousands of spongy moths from being in an environment defoliating our trees. Spongy moths will hatch, typically, they can hatch as early as mid-April, but typically late April into May, they'll hatch, and then you'll have the little teeny caterpillars, which you won't see, but then they grow very quickly. And as they grow, they're eating lots of trees. And there's over 300 species of trees that they like. They focus mostly on our oaks and our hardwoods, but they're voracious eaters, and they'll defoliate whatever they can, including pine trees. So if we get the egg masses early, then we can eliminate those caterpillars from doing any damage, plus from mating and having more spongy moth, so on and so forth. So be on the lookout for egg masses. If you see them, remove them. There's a great video in our messaging on how to do that. Just wanted to really update the committee on kind of where we were and what we're looking for this this coming season. So for the past 2 years, those who are on the committee and kind of board know, and for the new members, this is you may know, we had an outbreak of spongy moths in McHenry County. Now we are what's known as an infested county. They're here. You're never going to get rid of them. There's a lot of effort to what's called slow the spread, because as these spongy moths are marching their way west, and they have been since, actually, well, since the 1800s, but really the 80s, they really came through from New England, Pennsylvania, Ohio, into Illinois. We were infested around about mid-2000, and then they're working their way west. They're focusing in on Joe Davies County, that area. Lake Geneva, by the way, is really infested, so good luck up there with your spongy moths. Up in Wisconsin. But there's no effort to take care of the population on the state or national level in McHenry County, because we're infested. So they want to focus their efforts on where it can do the most good, slowing that spread, stopping them from moving west. So we just have to deal with them internally. And what we've done is we've been monitoring the population over the past couple of years. We know 2 years ago, we had some residents come through, bring it to the attention of the county board and say, we have an issue. County board said, yes, we recognize that issue. It was a call to action for the county. We got involved. Pete said, Scott, other duties as assigned, get to deal with spongy moths. And so I became the in-house spongy moth expert, which I actually really enjoy. I do appreciate that. We've been monitoring populations. We did trapping last year. Trapping is a misnomer. You're not collecting you're stopping the population. All you're doing is collecting data, population data with the trapping. It doesn't have any impact on the population whatsoever. We just understand where those potential hotspots are. We put together a good map. Actually, I didn't have it up, and I didn't want to hit Dan late in the game to put the map up on the screen, but I can show anybody who's interested where a lot of our hotspots are in the county. But for 2 years, we've been dealing with an outbreak. It's just been, in 2023, it was bad. 2024, it was worse. But here's what our data shows. And this is not the first time McHenry County or really any place has had to deal with spongy moth. When you have an outbreak, when you have an explosion, that's typically followed by a crash. And in 2009, 2010, McHenry County had an explosion of population. 2011, it crashed. I mean, it was negligible numbers. So that's a trend that we're seeing time and time again. So it begs the question, 2023, 2024 explosion? Is 2025 going to be a natural crash in the population, as we've seen for the data? We're hopeful, right? And let nature take its course. The other thing we're hopeful for is there is a naturally occurring fungus in the soil, and it's around here, Entomophaga maimai, and it's like COVID for spongy moths, right? It is very effective at naturally controlling the populations. A warm mud spring is very conducive to the proliferation of Entomophaga maimai. So if that fungus is able to really gain a lot of ground early on, it'll infect, and it focuses, it affects other things, but primarily it's really lethal to spongy moths in particular. And so as they go from little babies and they start growing, they get really infected by this fungus, and it'll naturally kill them. So we're hoping that nature takes its course in both those fronts, population crash naturally and this fungus that can do its work. But we'll see. In order for us to see, here's really what I want to update you on is what are we going to do this year in 2025? And my recommendation would be continue our trapping program. Let's continue to monitor our data. Let's work with our over 75 citizen scientists, 65 citizen scientists, some of which are in this room, by the way, thank you so much, to continue trapping so we can monitor what that population is, and we can see, is it still exploding or did it naturally crash? And then that way we'll have a better understanding as to kind of what the next several years will provide for us. Working with Nancy Johnson, who with the state of Illinois, who is really our statewide expert. We can work with her and see if we can get additional lures and insecticide strips. They were able to supply us last year. State's running through some budget challenges. The federal funding obviously is in jeopardy. So if we aren't able to get anything from the state, then we can purchase it. The trapping program, just for material supplies, is about $500 to $700. And we're asking citizen scientists to reuse their traps. I can supply them new lures and new insecticide strips and show them how to put them together or help them. We have some additional traps here that we didn't deploy last year. We can move out. But if we do that, I think it's really a low-cost effort to continue to monitor the population. GIS put together a database, and we can compare last year's data to this year's data and see how the population changed, if it moved, because they do move. And then from there, in the fall, when the data's back in, I can give you a report and let you know how it went.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yep, any questions from anybody? You're recommending that we do the trapping? Go ahead, Carolyn. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Okay, you're recommending that we're doing the trapping again, and I think the data is important. For people that weren't here before, I sort of kidded about the spongy moth thing, but if it's on your property and you have a couple acres and you lose 2 or 3 of your big old oaks, it costs a lot of money to have them taken down, and it affects your property value. And so it gets to be a pretty serious issue. And we had a gentleman and actually a couple people come in, Bull Valley, down by Marengo, looking for us to some kind of spray or whatever we could do to eradicate it, give them some form of relief. And that was going to run into a lot of money. And then there was certain people that didn't think that spraying was appropriate for different reasons. The Conservation District doesn't do it. They let it go on a more natural kind of thing. So it became quite an issue. And that's where Scott got involved. And I think if we have the data, so if it comes back and somebody has an isolated issue, we have an argument or at least a position to take that can say, we got the data here, they're going down compared to last year or this year. We really don't need to get into a spraying program or look at this.
Well, and there really isn't a spraying program available unless we pay for it completely. It's not like the federal government or the state's going to give us any money for it.
Yes, it was going to be a financial problem, yeah, so.
And there were some private property owners that got together and commissioned the spraying on them with their own money. And that happened in a couple of areas. I think last year, areas of Bull Valley did that. I think areas of Marengo, as the chairman mentioned, did some spraying on their own. And it's expensive. And the advantage is if you get together, you can get an economy of scale because it's all really based on the amount of acreage, And this aerial spraying, it's a helicopter that flies over and it costs a lot of money. So you can get that economy of scale. But at that time, it was really looking at those areas. And the question that this committee, for the new members, really had to deliberate was using, public dollars on essentially private property. And, is there public good served by doing that? That's a fundamental philosophical question. And one of many that you as county board members will be struggling with again and again and again is trying to strike that balance of, the public responsibility versus the private responsibility and where do you get involved. So, what was really important about this issue, and we joke about spongy moths, but really, this was a good example of how the system works. You had residents come in and say, we have an issue. You have a county board that said, we understand you, and they responded to the issue. And although the debate was, do we spray, what do we do? The fact is that it was brought to the table, and the county board acted by just even getting involved, by not saying, not our issue, and turning your back. The fact that we did trapping, that we're monitoring population, that we're investing a little bit of time, a little bit of resources, and very little, really shows that McHenry County is really responsive to that issue. And understanding it's not just an issue of those 2 residents that came to the table, it is a bigger issue, and a lot of people are involved and interested. So I really commend and congratulate the county board for seeing that and just being responsive, because that's what you do, and that's what makes this county great. And I say that as a resident, too, is that's what you want out of your government. And maybe they didn't get the spray program they wanted, but they did receive some action. They did receive the attention to this issue. And with that, I think that attention can be continued really at a little bit of effort, a little bit of cost.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
So just to kind of add to that, there was a really good discussion, I don't remember what meeting it was last summer, about this whole issue. The Conservation District did come in and give a presentation. I mean, it really got into, it is public money on private lands, but it was also an ecological issue in that the spray, which is not harmful to the birds themselves or to animals or people, it would kill off any caterpillar types, you know, the
Lepidoptera.
Thank you. And so, so there was a broader issue in terms of the potential for, you know, additional species collapses as birds were migrating through and not having sufficient food. So, I mean, it was a broader issue, as you mentioned, and it was looked at, but there was that meeting had a good discussion. So if you're at all interested, you can go. I don't remember which one, but if we figure it out, we can send it out, but it was a good discussion. So also to keep in mind, my question was really going to be, when are the traps available and when do you want them out again?
So in June. We'll probably get them out early June.
Okay.
The first fly, and so for the new member, it's only the male Spongy moth can fly. And so once they go through the caterpillar stage or chrysalis stage, usually it's about June. I think our first fly was June 20th was the first documented male Spongy moth caterpillar fly. So we want to get the traps out probably before that, because what it is. It's a pheromone strip that attracts those males in there, and then they go in and they die, and then we count how many there are. Some cases we had 0. Some cases we had 15. Other cases we had, in 2 cases, we had over 1,000. So some population can vary. But thank you for that. In June, we'll start rolling out the traps. And June, if you haven't been a citizen scientist and you want to participate, certainly welcome your input. Really, if we can get as much coverage to the county, that really gives us a good understanding as to where those populations are and how they may shift. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, future topics. Nobody has anything on that? Don't need an executive session. Motion to adjourn. So moved by Mr. Goodall, seconded by Paul. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Feel better, Larry.
You know, I don't feel too bad.